Hey guys, in this video we're going to build a slab flattening mill. And this video came up because I needed to flatten these panels, which we'll call slabs for the sake of argument here. So we're just going to walk through this together. I don't really have any plans ahead of time as to exactly how I'm going to build it. I've kind of got an idea in my head, but that's about it. And I hope it's going to be helpful to you, and let's get into it. What we're going to be making it out of is some 1/2 inch, más o menos 13 millimeter thick Baltic birch plywood that you see there in the back of the room. And also we're going to be using this hardware kit that I bought off of Amazon. I'll make sure to link that down below so you can check it out if it's interesting to you. It's basically, it's a hardware kit for assembling jigs and stuff like that, as well as slab flattening mills, as we'll do right now. All right, so first up, I want to measure out the thickness of the sled that this router will ride in. So we're just gonna set it there, move this over, a bit much. Give it maybe just a little bit of room between the two. And this will be the thickness of the sled portion for our router to slide back and forth in. So now that we got that set, we can rip down some plywood. Now that we got this piece cut that the router will actually slide on, we need to create some rails. So I'll cut a couple more thin strips of this to set as rails to keep the router from wandering off of the sled. Here we go. This is the plate that our router will ride on, front to back. Probably over explaining, it's one of my superpowers. But then these rails will basically keep the router from being able to walk off of it, right? The second thing it's going to do is provide rigidity to this base plate and keep it from flexing or bowing in the middle, because we don't want to be gouging out the center of our panels or slabs or whatever it might be. We want that cut to be nice and flat, level, straight, perfecto. All right, so now we'll just take a little Type Bond 3 and some 1 3/8 pin nails with a Makita pin nailer. And I'll leave a link for all the materials and tools we're using in this video down below, so you can go check them out if you need them yourself. Let's do this. That was the most embarrassing straight line I've ever made in my life. Now I'm just gonna make sure to press down on this table as I put the pin nails in to hold it, just so I have a nice flat even surface so that it doesn't create sort of a wave or a bow. It's good to have tips in the videos because oftentimes I need a reminder. And while I was attaching this rail to the base, at one point I had turned my pin nailer sideways, going for the kill shot, and ended up having some blowout. So we'll go over that real quick, how to avoid that. So first I'm just gonna slap the glue on here. And the straightest glue line you've ever seen in your life, no extra charge. All right. So what I did was I had turned it sideways like this, and just think of it like this. The pin is going to tend to wander either to the right or to the left of the tool respectively. So you want that wander to be within the material rather than if I were to, let's say, flip it up like this. If I were to nail it like this, it's gonna wanna come out either the bottom or the top of this base piece. But if I aim it straight into the material like this, if it does wander left or right, it's going to still be within this material. So that's what we're going for. All right, and there you have it. It's just a channel for the router to travel in. as I'm just winging this whole project, something I just thought of is, let's say you set your router to plunge as low as it can, right? To be able to reach down and flatten that slab. You're going to end up, depending on the end mill bit that you're using, you might be limited a little bit, right? Because this is going to be sitting on top of that channel, which is this thick, right? So that channel is going to be riding on some side rails like this. And so depending on the thickness of your slab, this may or may not work. So obviously in this case, this one just ain't gonna work. All right, so I swapped out for a longer reaching bit. It's about 3/4 inches wide. So now, I guess the width of it doesn't really matter. But now this is basically what you're working with, right? So you're gonna have this sitting on top of this plate, on top of that channel, and then here's your sidewall, right? That the channel rides on. So now, this is going to be the bottom of your slab or panel. There's the potential to be limited by how thick of a slab or panel that you can actually mill, right? Because I'm going to need to be, this is maxed out, so this is the max depth. So you might start a little bit higher and gradually work the whole thing down. That's assuming that that sidewall is going to perfectly complement the thickness of the panel or slab that you're trying to mill. Yeah, so I think what I'll do is make my first set of sidewalls based off of the thickness of the panels that I have to mill down. And that being said, you can really make multiple walls. It's not going to matter how many you make. It really just depends on your needs. So my slab's about 1 5/16 inches thick, and we'll go 1 5/8. All right, now we kind of get to start looking at what we got to work with in our jig kit. Basically, these are going to, they'll come up through the bottom of these center ones sticking out, and then they will go through a hole that we'll drill here. So next up, we have to create a groove down the underside of these for the head of this to fit in. So we'll go ahead and get the dado stack set up on the table saw and cut 3/8 inch dados down the full length of these, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do with the grooves where the bolt portion goes through. The groove was not quite wide enough, so I'm gonna need to make it wider. So I may need to bump the fence, but before I do that, it wasn't quite deep enough either, I don't think. So I'm gonna give it just a scotch more. I'm gonna raise the dado stack blades up just a little tiny bit, just to get a good depth so we're not rubbing on the bottom. And then I'll bump it over to make the cut wider, and then this should fit just perfect. Now we've recut these, and boom, it's gonna fit absolutely perfect. So next we're going to drill slots in the middle of these just for the thread portion to fit through. For stuff that can fit through the planer, I'm just gonna send it through the planer. It'd be so much easier. So I'm not worried about the center 13 inches, right? We won't necessarily need the walls to come in any further than 13 inches. So the grooves we're about to cut don't need to be that long. Yeah, so I think what I'll do is start the slats in the center of these dados about 2 inches in, and then we'll cut them all the way to what would be an offset of 6.5 inches from the center. That's how we'll do it. All right. First we'll find the center. I'm not left-handed, so that was kind of weird. Just go ahead and mark the center of all of them. Now we're gonna go, actually, you know what, I'll just do 6, either way. All right, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but this just lets me know, hey, this is where my groove is gonna stop. I don't need it to come in any further, because if it's any narrower than that, I'm gonna be running through the planer, like I said. All right, so now I have everything cut and ready to go. I'm just gonna start assembling it and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, pretty simple concept. And honestly, like I said at the beginning, I'm winging it. I didn't have plans. I didn't look at somebody else's. I just was thinking I need this and I'm just gonna try and build it, see if it works. A couple advantages to having these three bottom pieces, which is what your material that you're trying to mill will lay on top of, is just that fact that it'll lay on top. So you could use double-sided tape to be able to hold it down. Also, you can clamp these cross reels down to your flat surface, like a workbench or you know, whatever you might have that's perfectly flat and level. The next step is to take this channel that our router is going to ride in, and we're gonna have to cut, obviously lower the bit through the material to cut the hole, and then, you know, run it the length that we're gonna use it. I will find out here shortly if it's going to ruin my beautiful walnut coffee table or if it's going to save the day. I'm going to fire it up and drop the bit through the material of the sled portion, and then just run that groove all the way across and see how that goes. All right, so there you go. At this point, conceptually, it's going to work just fine. Once I finish cutting this whole groove all the way across, the sled slides across the walls really nicely. What would improve that, of course, is putting paste wax not only in here to allow your router to continue to slide smoothly through the sled, but also maybe on top of the walls as well, so the whole sled itself slides nice and smoothly. I think this is actually going to work out really well. I'm pretty excited about it. Get finished cutting that groove, and then I'll show you how it's going to go. All right, as you can see, conceptually, this thing works, and I'm really glad I had the idea to make one. It was not that difficult. I literally, including filming and everything, built this whole thing in just a couple of hours. It was very, very simple. Well, that's it for this DIY slab flattening mill. And make sure you get subscribed so you can see when the walnut coffee table video comes out. Also, you can see this baby in action a whole lot more. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.